So you want to live in Tokyo. For years, this was one of the most expensive cities on earth to even consider, right up there with London and New York in every impossibly expensive megacity list. Before you assume that's still true, let's talk about what's actually changed here. Because the yen just did something that rewrote this entire city's economics, and almost nobody outside Japan has fully caught up to it yet. Here's the headline shift. The yen has weakened dramatically against the dollar, euro, and pound, hovering around 155 to 160 to the dollar through 2025 and into 2026. Combined with decades of Japanese deflation, Tokyo, one of the world's great megacities, is now genuinely cheaper to rent in than San Francisco, Seattle, Denver, or New York, for anyone earning in foreign currency. A comfortable single life in Tokyo runs roughly $1,800 to $2,800 a month. The same lifestyle in Denver runs $3,500 to $5,000. In New York, $5,000 to $7,000. That gap is the real story here, and it's a genuinely recent one. Tokyo's reputation as impossibly expensive was built decades ago and simply hasn't caught up with current reality. But Tokyo has its own set of quirks that catch newcomers off guard just as hard as the weak yen helps them. Moving in requires paying what's called reikin, or key money, a non-refundable payment to your landlord, typically 0 to 2 months' rent, that functions as a pure thank you gift. You'll never see it again. It's not a deposit. Add shikiken, the actual security deposit, running 1 to 2 months, plus an agency fee, around 1 month, plus a mandatory guarantor company fee, since most landlords now require a paid guarantor service rather than accepting a personal guarantor from a foreign renter. All told, moving into a 100,000 yen apartment can cost 300,000 to 500,000 yen before you've bought a single piece of furniture. 4 to 6 months of rent, up front, in cash. There's a specific escape hatch worth knowing. Listings marked Reikin Nashi, or 00, skip the key money entirely, and newer buildings and corporate-owned properties increasingly drop it as competition for tenants increases. But the selection is still meaningfully smaller than the broader market, and finding one specifically requires knowing to search for that exact term, often on Japanese language listing sites like Sumo or homes.co.jp, rather than the English language platforms most newcomers default to first. Working with a rental agent who specifically caters to foreign tenants can also meaningfully reduce these upfront costs, since some agencies negotiate reduced fees as part of their standard service to overseas clients. Income tax here layers in a way that's genuinely different from anywhere else in this series. National income tax is progressive, climbing toward the mid-40s at the very top. On top of that sits resident tax, called juminzei, running roughly 10%, but here's the part that catches almost every foreign resident off guard. Resident tax is billed in arrears, based on the previous year's income, not the current one. Your first year in Japan, if you're employed, nothing gets withheld for resident tax at all, because there's no prior year of Japanese income to calculate it from. Your second year, you suddenly owe a full year of resident tax stacked directly on top of your current year's obligations. A genuine budget shock that experienced expats specifically warn newcomers to prepare for by saving 8 to 10% of their gross income during that quiet first year. Consumption tax adds another layer on top of daily spending, sitting at 10% standard, 8% on food and non-alcoholic beverages, functionally similar to VAT, embedded in nearly every purchase rather than added at checkout the way American sales tax is. Here's a quirk unlike anything else in this series: furusato nozei, or hometown tax. It's a government program letting any taxpayer redirect a portion of their resident tax to a municipality of their choice in exchange for a thank you gift from that town, often local food, seafood, or goods worth genuinely more than what you paid. Structured correctly, a mid-income earner can receive 40,000 to 100,000 yen or more in local products for a net out-of-pocket cost of around 2,000 yen. It's essentially a legal, government-sanctioned discount on your existing tax bill, and it's one of the more delightful quirks in Japan's entire tax code. Nothing in Greece, Hawaii, Panama, Italy, or Dubai offers anything close to this. Location changes the math significantly here too, the same way it does everywhere in this series. Osaka runs 30 to 40% below Tokyo for comparable housing. Fukuoka, increasingly popular with remote workers, offers beachside living at even lower cost, consistently ranked among Japan's most livable cities. Kyoto splits the difference, genuine historic beauty for less than a typical American studio apartment. For anyone not tied to Tokyo specifically for work, these regional cities represent some of the best value for lifestyle anywhere in this entire series. Here's what almost nobody puts in the relocation guides. Japan's visa landscape looks nothing like Dubai's Golden Visa or Panama's Pensionado program. There's no straightforward property investment path to residency here. The main routes are the highly skilled professional visa, a points-based system rewarding education, income, and work experience, and a newer digital nomad visa, introduced specifically for high-earning remote workers, though it caps at a 6-month stay, rather than offering the multi-year residency other countries in this series provide. Japan's immigration system is genuinely built around contribution and skill level, not capital investment, a fundamentally different philosophy than every other country we've covered. Healthcare adds a genuinely reassuring layer here. Japan's national health insurance system, mandatory for anyone not covered by an employer plan, typically costs a modest percentage of income, and the country's healthcare quality consistently ranks among the best in the world despite the relatively low cost. Employed residents get coverage automatically through payroll deductions alongside their pension contributions. The self-employed budget roughly 30,000 to 55,000 yen a month, combined for national health insurance and the flat national pension payment, which sits at 16,980 yen monthly as of the most recent figures. Compared to the mandatory private insurance costs we've covered in Dubai, or the elevated healthcare pricing in New York, Japan's system is a genuine standout on this specific line item. A couple of quick myths worth busting. No, key money and the brutal move-in cost stack aren't universal anymore. Increasing competition for tenants, especially in newer buildings and corporate-managed properties, has pushed a real and growing share of the market towards 0-0 listings, with no key money and reduced deposits, meaning the worst-case scenario isn't the only scenario. And no, Tokyo being currently affordable for dollar earners doesn't mean it's cheap in absolute terms for Japanese residents themselves. Wages in Japan have grown far more slowly than the yen has weakened, meaning the same affordability story that benefits foreign earners has made daily life measurably harder for many local residents earning in yen, a tension worth understanding rather than ignoring. Now here's the part most cost of living content skips entirely. What does serious wealth actually look like in Tokyo? And here's the twist. This is where the weak yen that makes everything else in this video affordable becomes a genuine trap. Neighborhoods like Azabudai Hills and the broader Roppongi area have seen a real wave of foreign buying, specifically because the weak yen makes Tokyo luxury real estate look remarkably cheap in dollar or euro terms, with brand new towers offering earthquake-resistant engineering, hotel-style amenities, and views that would cost multiples more in London or New York. But Japan's inheritance tax is one of the steepest in the developed world, progressive from 10% up to 55% on estates above roughly 600 million yen. And critically, it applies to a resident's entire worldwide estate, not just Japan-based assets, once someone has held domicile in Japan for 10 of the previous 15 years. The same weak yen that makes buying in feel like a bargain also means Japan's inheritance tax thresholds, denominated in yen, now get triggered by smaller amounts of foreign currency than before. A genuinely under-discussed irony that wealth advisors are actively warning clients about in 2026. A basic exclusion of 30 million yen plus 6 million yen per legal heir does provide real relief, and a surviving spouse is exempt up to a considerably higher threshold. But for a wealthy foreign buyer, who hasn't done real estate planning before, crossing that 10-year residency mark, the exposure can be substantial and genuinely surprising. American buyers face an additional layer on top of this. The U.S. taxes its citizens on worldwide estates, regardless of where they live, meaning a U.S.-Japan tax treaty exists specifically to prevent true double taxation, but navigating it requires specialized cross-border estate planning that most buyers only discover they need after the purchase is already made. Let's run the real math. A single professional earning 5 million yen a year, roughly $32,000 given current exchange rates, pays modest national and resident tax and can live comfortably in Tokyo on 200,000 to 280,000 yen a month, even after the upfront move-in shock of key money and deposits. Compare that to an equivalent-feeling lifestyle in New York or San Francisco, and the weak yen alone can represent a meaningful effective raise for anyone earning in dollars. Now take that same professional into their second year, when the resident tax bill they never saw coming lands on top of an otherwise identical income, a genuine reminder that the headline monthly budget only tells part of the story until you've actually lived through a full tax cycle here. Now picture a wealthy foreign buyer purchasing a multi-million-dollar unit in Asabudai Hills, drawn purely by how cheap it looks against a weak yen. If they don't structure their estate planning before crossing the 10-year residency threshold, their heirs could eventually face Japanese inheritance tax on assets held anywhere in the world, a liability that never entered the original purchase decision at all. So does living in Tokyo actually work economically? For most foreign residents, especially anyone earning in a stronger foreign currency, the honest answer right now is remarkably favorable. This is arguably the best currency-driven opportunity in this entire series, a major world city that's become genuinely affordable almost by accident. The real friction points aren't the daily cost of living at all. They're the upfront rental shock of key money and deposits, and the second-year resident tax surprise that catches nearly everyone off guard regardless of income level. And for wealthy buyers specifically, Tokyo is a case study in how a currency advantage on the way in can quietly become a tax liability on the way out, if nobody bothers to look past the purchase price.